This Boeing 747-200 stood ready with 418 passengers and crew for takeoff, but something went horribly wrong. Instead of climbing smoothly, the plane struggled to gain altitude. In the cockpit, captains were facing a dire situation. Warning alarms blared, and crucial systems seemed to fail them. What could make such a reliable aircraft hover on the edge of disaster? The crew was battling against impossible odds to keep their plane in the air. They were flying dangerously low, only just 150 feet over the city of Athens. What will happen next? Stay tuned. This is the true story of Olympic Airways Flight 411, based on official reports and eyewitness accounts. August 9th, 1978. Ellinikon Airport, Athens, Greece. A Boeing 747-200 is being prepared for passenger service to John F. Kennedy Airport, New York City. The flight, designated as Olympic Airways Flight 411, is scheduled to depart Athens at about 14 hours local time. The 747-200 model features more powerful engines and a higher maximum takeoff weight, MTOW, than the previous 747-100 model. One of the main technologies that enable an aircraft as large as the 747 to be drawn up is the high bypass turbofan engine. In the late 1960s, Pratt & Whitney developed a new engine called JT9D and designated it to power the 747. With water injection, it delivers more thrust for the heavy jumbo jet. However, Pratt & Whitney developed the JT9D on an accelerated timetable, which resulted in engine flaws. The JT9D engine has many mechanical issues, and proper maintenance is required to ensure the engine's safety. For instance, high-pressure turbine core fan blades can become damaged and require replacement after 500 hours. The JT9D is also sensitive to tailwind airflow conditions at the start. In command is Captain Sifis Megadis, a very experienced pilot with 32 years of experience with Olympic Airways. The first officer, Kostas Fikados, is also considered skilled and is a close friend of Megadis. There were 400 passengers and 18 crew members on board. Most of the passengers are US citizens who spent their holidays in Greece. Just before 2 p.m. local time, the plane pushed back from the gate. Today, the aircraft is quite heavy, with 160 tons of fuel required for the transatlantic flight. The aircraft's gross weight is 350,000 kilograms. On today's flight, the plane's takeoff climb was limited to 353,000 kilograms using the JD9D-7A wet engine. In 1978, the Boeing 747 was considered a prestige aircraft, and many airlines purchased it as a fleet flagship. Olympic Airways received its first 747 in 1973. Olympic Airways is the flag carrier for Greece and has purchased 747s for some of its prime routes, including the non-stop between Athens and New York. This means that large numbers of American tourists can be accommodated in one flight at lower per-seat costs to the airline. Athens lies in the center of 4 large mountains: Mount Aigaleo to the west, Mount Parnitha to the north, Mount Pentelicus to the northeast, and Mount Hymettus to the east. As the Boeing 747 begins taxiing, engine number 3 and number 4 idle lower than usual. Moments later, the Boeing 747 lines up on runway 33R. The flaps are set to 20 degrees and the AC packs are off. The atmospheric pressure is 29.83 Hg and the wind is from 310 degrees at 12 knots. The temperature is 32 degrees Celsius. Just after 2 p.m., the fight is cleared for takeoff, and so the aircraft begins its takeoff roll. As the plane moves down the runway, it's hard for the pilots to get enough speed for takeoff. Immediately before lifting off, the aircraft suffers an explosion and catastrophic engine failure on the number 3 engine. By that time, the plane has exceeded the takeoff safety speed, meaning it is no longer safe for the pilots to abort the takeoff. As a result, the crew decides to continue the takeoff, and seconds later, the plane with difficulty lifts off. Just after lifting off, a water flow warning sounds on the flight deck. However, the flight crew misinterprets the water flow warning as water run out, so the water pump switch is turned off. Turning off the pumps with an engine not working and the Boeing 747 takeoff climb limited significantly impacts the plane's ability to climb. When the plane is just 35 feet above the runway, the captain immediately orders the landing gear retracted. This is contrary to the aircraft's flight manual. In fact, retracting the gear would cause a temporary increase in drag because of the landing gear doors opening and closing. The captain decides to retract the landing gear because he comments that he would never be able to clear Mount Aigaleo with the gear slowing the plane down. After liftoff, the airspeed begins to decrease and the plane loses altitude fast. Captain Megardis uses his knowledge of aerodynamics to prevent the plane from stalling. The crew is barely able to keep the plane airborne, flying just 200 above a densely populated area of Athens. The captain needs to fly level and avoid turning as much as possible. At this time, the captain focuses on getting the plane away from the city and to an unpopulated area to reduce the loss of lives if the plane crashes. While the captain, the first officer, fly the plane, the flight engineer focuses on the problems with the engine. The plane climbs sluggishly to an altitude of just 209 feet. Shortly afterward, the plane loses altitude. As the plane flies over the densely populated area of Kalathea, its altitude is only 180 feet and its speed is 160 knots. The minimum certified speed for a Boeing 747 in the current configuration is 156 knots. With 100,641 inhabitants, the area of Kalathea is the second most densely populated municipality in Greece. Moments later, even though the plane is flying dangerously low, the captain lowers the nose. This way, the plane manages to gain speed, and the engineer can increase the engine's power. After almost 2 minutes of flying straight, and as low as 150 feet above ground, the captain is finally able to climb up to 1,500 feet. When the airspeed increases, the captain focuses on increasing altitude and heading towards the sea. The larger obstacle of Mount Aigaleo at 1,539 feet is of great concern because the low airspeed and minimal altitude don't leave the flight crew rough room to execute a normal banked turn. At 14:05, a light headwind gives the plane some altitude, which allows Megardis to make a gradual turn to avoid crashing into the mountain. After flying over the sea to dump fuel, the 747 returns to Ellinikon International Airport safely. Everyone survived. The Greek National Air Safety Board, which investigates aviation accidents and incidents, was not established until 2004. The Vice President of Customer Support at Boeing issued a report entitled Performance Analysis of the Olympic Airways Takeoff at Athens on August 9, 1978. Boeing concluded that no malfunction in the airframe of engines caused the lack of performance following takeoff. Instead, the problem was caused by the inadvertent shutoff of the water injection pumps by the flight crew and the resulting decrease in thrust. Loss of wet thrust in a situation where the airplane was takeoff climb limited severely reduced the ability to continue the flight with any significant amount of positive climb gradient. Once thrust was manually increased at a coordination time of approximately 325 seconds, the airplane climbed out in a normal manner. Newspapers reported that Engine 3 exploded during takeoff due to overheating of the turbine cooling pipes. Captain Megardis managed to keep the aircraft in the air at an extremely low altitude and with below minimum speed. All Boeing simulations of the flight resulted in crashes. Olympic Airlines changed some of its procedures based on the lessons learned from this flight. Boeing's training curriculum included a review of this case. What do you think about the decisions made by Captain Megardis during this harrowing flight? Would you have done anything differently? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more incredible stories like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.